around in a small venue in Manhattan then against someone that we don't really know, then obviously not so much. But if it's a big world title fight, then there'll be a big following coming over.
I mean, his first fight, live fight, is likely to be, some top 10, 12 kind of guy. I mean, nothing huge. Money's not huge. It's more an exposure, and I think that Epix understands that this guy can become a star. I mean, he's being used by Sky to help him out on the announce team tonight, I believe. They asked us about that. Obviously, he's an extremely well-spoken kid, good-looking. It'd be fun to hang out with. He goes over very big in every Irish club in New York that he walks into, and they already know him.
That's because I own shares.
But they know him, and frankly, it makes a big difference to go in and meet these people. And that's how, the McLaughlins worked with Duddy when Duddy was picking up. Because Duddy, frankly, back then wasn't the kind of kid that really liked to go to he had his own little haunt when he was with his girlfriend, and he really didn't like to bop around and meet people. The McLaughlins did a lot of that for him. One of the things Matthew has a close friend, Brian Peters, who's Brian, right here, our partner from Ireland. He has a close friend in New York that owns 17, or was it? Yeah. 17 club, bars and Irish clubs, and he was circulating through all of those. So we expect a very strong crowd for his first fight here. And
even back to the days like Jerry Cooney and any good Irish fighters always the Irish people like fighting, man. They like boxing. Boxing was always the Gaelic games of the national sports, but boxing would be high up there. So they've always been well supported over the years. And obviously, like you said, other fighters coming over. When Barry McGuigan came over, in the wars had a big following.
So what do you think, though, when you look at the division? Sergio is the champion. He fights tonight. That would, I assume, be your goal to land that kind of opportunity. But it's not a star-studded division, but there's talented guys. Whether it's Andy, Brian Winner, or it's Sturm again, or there's other guys.
I think there's a lot of good fighters in the middleweight division. It probably doesn't lack. It lacks a little bit of his marquee names, but I think talent-wise, there's you could look at it. You could think nearly a year or two down the line could be one of maybe the best divisions. Just need guys to kind of establish themselves a bit more. But I think Sturm was well established. He would have been thought of that he was number 2 only to Sergio. So I went over there and everyone's seen the fight. So I think I proved myself to be one of the best middleweights in the world. So fighting Sergio was something that I'd love. Yeah, definitely.
How legit do you think that is? Will HBO go for that?
Yeah, I believe so. I think one of the reasons why I also want him to get another television exposure before attempting to make that fight. And maybe 2. We'll see what presents itself. We'll see what presents itself. But obviously, he's going to get a major fight at middleweight fairly quickly. But I do think it's important. We're very happy that Epix has supported Matthew, there's a likelihood again is if it's on Epix, it probably will get a delay on MSG, and a lot of people will see it, and that's the aim. To put Matthew in front of as many people as possible.
And it's good that Sky Television, televised the fight in Germany, and hopefully they'll continue to do so here, so they can keep the sport up in Ireland and the UK and across Europe as well. You don't want to lose that either.
And we have a very strong relationship. Now Frank Warren started his own network in the UK. Sky is going to be looking for programming that's of importance and interest in the UK. Matthew obviously is very.
You've been on Sky a bunch of times, right?
Yeah, my whole career.
Right.
So I've already spoken to Matchroom and Eddie Hearn and Barry about helping us out in the UK if necessary, and we he will be televised in the UK and in Ireland when he fights, including his first fight. But my real desire is to get him in front of the American crowd, get in front of an Irish crowd, build a following in New York, because frankly we need to do that.
Let's say Barker wins the title.
Yeah.
That would be a huge fight over in the UK.
That would be a huge fight. And for that type of fight, there's definitely a chance that obviously we have a rematch clause on Barker, but there's a chance that for that kind of fight, if the deal is pre-made, that Matthew could fight Barker in between with the winner fighting Sergio.
Is your rematch clause with Barker immediate, or does he have an option to do one in between?
I'm guessing that, knowing myself, it's immediate. But that doesn't mean necessarily it has to be done that way. But, there's clearly Barker and Matthew in England. If Barker would have said Sergio would be a huge fight. God willing, I don't have to worry about that. You know, I mean, Matthew's a really, Barker's a real fighter. I'm not walking in tonight thinking that it's a fait accompli. I've been around this business too long.
Now, when you sit there and you watch the fight unfold tonight, knowing that there's a reasonable chance that you may fight the winner, particularly against Martin Garcia, and you're sitting in your seat, you're just checking it out, what kind of things do you look for? I mean, you're obviously scouting it.
Yeah, of course.
What are you looking for? Other than, you're going to enjoy the fight like as a fan, but...
Yeah, well, I mean, technically, tactically, you can always analyse a fighter on video, but I think when you're up close, you can get more engaged with their speed and their power, which is not always that clear. It's always not as easy to sort of gauge that on a DVD, but when you're up there live, you're only a few feet away. You can get a bit more of a feel of how quick he is, how his reflexes are like, how quick he's reacting to things, and also you know facial expressions, his body language. Was he tiring at the end of the round? Was he hurt with that? I think things like that I try and pick more so when I'm watching the fight live, and then because technically and tactics-wise, and mistakes and patterns and habits, you can pick that up, you know, by watching hours and hours of DVDs.
So you just file whatever you see in your mind?
Yeah, I try and look at things more like to see if shots hurt him, or if they look like they're tiring, or you know, how do they look really quick, or you know, things like that.
I mean, it's interesting that when we sat down, that of all the fighters I've talked to that have indicated an interest in fighting surgery, which of course are limited, but he's probably presented the most cogent plan of how he, you know, he's really broken him down already. I mean, to some extent, and has an idea of how he thinks he has to fight. I mean, one of the things he said, and it's not a secret, he said it earlier for a second, is that when you come to Sergio Martinez, you know, you have to be very careful.
Yeah, you might think you're backing him up and you're doing well, but maybe he's not backing him. He's trying to walk you onto something. So I mean, if I fought him, I'd obviously you'd come up with plan A, plan B, plan C. But just off the top of my head, I think that I don't think I'd necessarily try and pressure him too much. I'd probably just try and hold the centre of the ring and let him come to me.
Do you know
try and hit him as he comes. I don't know Sergio's.
Did you ever
at the press conference? That was it.
Okay, no,
I don't know.
No,
They'll meet tonight, they met, but they'll meet, you know. And look, they're two guys that just are going to have respect for each other. That's who they are. So they're going to meet, they're going to like each other, and they're going to try to kill each other if they fight. I mean, that's just the way it is. You know, I think that one of the things also attracting to Matthews, and when you look across the landscape of the world right now, in terms of who are exciting fighters, you know, he has to make a list. I mean, he's just an exciting guy. He likes to rumble. He bleeds too much. He gets hit too much for his own good. But he's a high-pressure fighter. He's got skills. He can move. He can do everything. But the last thing he is a runner. And there's so many fights with him that can be made right now, even in a mediocre middleweight division, where I think will be below the very top. It's needs to be developed. I think some of what he said about there are guys there, you know, down the line, and I say down the line, a Pirog or a Peter Quillen, particularly if they fight each other. I mean, we have to weed through to create fights that mean something.
You have a crop of 54s that are going to come up too.
Exactly, and then those guys, when they come up, you're going to have a vision that's reinvigorated, and he building the market in the meantime, possibly getting the big fight in March. But you know, he's going to get a big fight very soon, even if it's not Sergio. I mean, there are so many other possibilities, and he's on the short list of the top of the division. I mean, who is it? I mean, you know, you can make a very strong argument he's number 2 right now at 160.
I mean, at the worst, he's 3, I would think, right?
You know, so, I mean, that's right. So, you know, it's a good time for Matthew, and I think that also I'm very impressed by, when I talk to Matthew, when I talk to Brian, the understanding and the willingness of building a following in America, making use of the fact that, you know, that whole little area between New York City and Boston is riddled with, you know, Irish Americans, and if you go to the Bronx and Queens, there are parts of it that are friggin' Ireland, and you know, it's why Duddy was able to be such a star, why his fights are still replayed on MSG Network, and one of the reasons why, well, the Matthew Macklin Stern fight was sensational, but they're replaying that every week, and part of it is that there's an Irish contingent that'll watch it more than once. So
it wasn't the worst fight to watch.
It was a terrific fight to watch. And the other thing is there are fights I can make for him. You know, I mean, you know, his first fight in the States, there's not going to be a huge budget, and it's not going to be, you know, the idea is it's going to be to sell out a smaller venue or a mid-sized venue, not put him in some big venue, and, you know, the idea is to bring in a crowd and to develop a crowd. But there are guys in there because of his style of fighting that you just can't have a bad fight. Guys that he has more class than.
Where do you want to have it?
I mean, possibly the Beacon Theater would be a perfect place. The problem with the Beacon Theater is the holidays. But we've been looking at the Beacon Theater as a possibility.
That's where, like 54th Street or something?
It's on Broadway and 74th Street. The Garden has expressed interest in doing, Matthews Fight in a smaller venue, but again, it's.
In the theater?
Yeah, potentially, and then also you have Foxwoods and Mohegan Sun as possibilities, mid-sized venues in Boston. I mean, we're gonna look at any place, but really, our desire is to fight New York. I mean, our desire is to fight New York, and I think that's what we're gonna really try to do. And we could even get super creative if the Garden doesn't have availability and do something like the Apollo Theater or some other venue that has, pizzazz, but it is more of a mid-sized or smaller venue.